Happy Monday! It's Rep Queen Pod going up until 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I am so confused because we are an hour ahead here in Aruba. Still in Aruba. Kelly and Vegas sitting next to me in the living room of our new hotel. We have now moved. I've moved now 3 times in Aruba, but at least I am still here. Gonna just tweet out Mid-Major Matt and Jared Block from Trinity Analytics joining the show to talk Monday Night Football and NBA props. So very excited to be back. Definitely Tanner. Okay, now that the tweet's out, I feel very discombobulated. It's been a week. Gonna go to the comments. Hi, Daniel. Hi, Kay, Craig, Just Rodriguez, Matt Reichel. KIV should not bet against the Ravens, especially when your friend invites you on vacation. Do you bet against their team? I feel like no. And guess what? Karma happened. And my Ravens ended up getting the dub yesterday. Chips, Bob, my trip is still ongoing, but I'm still working because that's how this works if you want to stay on vacation for 2 weeks. I'm red. I'm not completely red. It's turning into tan. It's getting there. And I haven't been burnt since 2 days ago, which is a big accomplishment for me. NFL, we've got Monday Night Football tonight, Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles. For anyone that hasn't been looking at the splits, this one is heavily public to the Eagles. It was plus 2.5 a lot earlier this week. Kelly and I will be watching because she wants to hit her Eagles teasers. If you've been following Kel, she's got some of those. Yesterday, craziness ensued. We actually ended up missing the Houston and Jacksonville game, which was a crazy finish. So I feel bad for anyone who had the Jags. What other sides did I feel bad about yesterday? The Saints ended up winning. And shout out to the guys over on Bet On It. They were talking about it over at Wager Talk, how the Saints was a great side because the Carolina Panthers have to face Atlanta next week, and they were coming off a big upset. So it was a really good spot for the Saints. Got them at plus 5.5. I was really mad that I didn't end up swapping out the Chicago Bears yesterday because I was between the Bears and there was one other that I was debating between. Arizona. Bears and Arizona. And guess what idiot put Arizona in her pick'em pool? Me. So the Arizona Cardinals got destroyed 44-22. But the Giants end up losing 24-20 and firing their head coach, Brian Daboll, today. There were reports yesterday about it, and there were reports last week about it, which according to people I know close to the Giants, last week's alleged firing of Brian Daboll was not as legit. Obviously, they were like, no, it was all just chatter. But this week, I mean, come on, more come from behind wins. The Giants, now Jackson Dart's in concussion protocol again. Scottaboo is out for the season. It kind of feels a little weird because they were getting better, but health is definitely an issue. Mark, Ariel Lobster Epstein. Okay, you guys want to hear something funny? And don't take this seriously. Kelly wanted to tweet this out, and we forgot about it. We forgot about tweeting this. So we get to the hotel today, and I know this has nothing to do with sports, but if you want to make a Jeffrey Epstein joke, here's your Jeffrey Epstein joke. We get to this hotel today, and the guy asked what my name was so that he could check us in. I said, Ariel Epstein. He goes, oh, Epstein. I said, yes. And what did I say? I was like,
I said, oh, don't even start. And you said.
And I was like, do you want me to buy the island? Right? It was something
I think you're like, we're checking in this hotel today. Tomorrow we buy the island or something really funny.
I can't remember, but it was really funny because he literally looked at me and he was like, Epstein. Oh. And I was like, oh. Yeah, I think it was something like, today we're checking into our timeshare, or we're going to buy a timeshare today, and then we're going to buy the island tomorrow. Dude, seriously? That's what you give me when I check into my hotel. That's what you give me. The Jeffrey Epstein jokes are funny. And guess what? Your Jeffrey Epstein jokes and your Red Lobster jokes aren't going to get to me. I'm used to it by now. This is the tannest I've probably ever been in my life. So I don't care what any of you have to say. I'm glad. And if you're in the cold, you're cold, and I'm not. So I'll take red over pale any day of the week. Holy hoots, Kelly. Holy hoots. What would you rename Aruba? Nothing. It's my favorite place in the world. I would never rename this place. Over under Kelly shots 4.5. She doesn't take shots, so you don't know her. She does not take shots. No, but over under number of bottles of wine that Kelly and I consume, or margaritas. That's the question to ask. Yesterday, my props were not great, by the way. Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert had 33 pass attempts, and it was 35.5 prop. We did not hit that over. We did hit the DeAndre Swift over. He's back. Faced the Giants, who have been bad against the run all year. So we go over 53.5 rushing yards. And that one scared me a little bit because it was 48.5 by the time that game kicked off. But he went over anyway. So that was a good one for DeAndre Swift, who rushed for 80 yards. What else did I lose on yesterday? There was one other prop that I liked. Oh, the one Kelly tailed, because those always lose. Bam Knight over 10.5 receiving yards. Every time she tails me, every time it loses. Don't give your friends any kind of info. When you give your friends info and you say, hey, I love this, go bet it, it always loses every single time. But I'm back today for the Prop Queen Pod. I'll be back on Wednesday, Thursday. Tuesday and Friday, Kelly and I are skedaddling and enjoying the world. The newsletter is going to go out on football days, so I'm just going to focus on NFL stuff for the newsletter this week, and then we'll jump back into the NBA when I get back next week. I'll be back in America on Saturday. Let's bring on my good friend, Major Matt, who held down the fort for me last week. It was very nice of him to come on and host the show. He also had Jared Block on, who's going to come on after Matt at 5:30 Eastern. It is 6 o'clock here in Aruba, so I'm very confused by the time of day. Mid-Major Matt's Philadelphia Eagles are going to be live tonight against the Green Bay Packers. You have your Eagles sweatshirt on. How are you feeling about your Eagles tonight?
I'd feel better if the Packers didn't choke last week and lose to the Panthers. I don't know if Green Bay is capable of winning 2 straight games like this, but I would feel better if they were coming off a win than they're coming off a loss.
Okay. Well, now you guys get the Packers on the road. How do you feel about them being on the road off the bye?
I don't have as much of a problem with it. I think that this team is with the trades that they made, that they were able to get some new players that are going to be in there. I'm excited to see what Jalen Phillips can do tonight, because I think Jalen Phillips is a really good addition. Obviously, Brandon Graham coming off of retirement. I think that's going to be fascinating. If you're a nostalgic person, you could take over whatever it is, a quarter a sack, a half a sack, whatever it is. I think he could find his presence tonight. I think that my concern here is the second corner. Where does Quinyon Mitchell go, and who's healthy for the Packers? Like, their whole team, wide receiver wise, is banged up right now. So they've got Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson, who's on a snap count, and then everybody else. Matthew Golden was injured. Malik Heath, I think, is injured. Some of the other guys are injured. And so who's catching passes for Jordan Love tonight?
Well, I think that's a good question to ask about both these teams, because the wide receivers, it's a tough market for both the Eagles and the Packers, because you never know who's going to be between Doubs, Watson. Those are your main two, especially for deep threats, maybe even Matthew Golden. The Eagles, it's hard to choose. Like, is it AJ Smith? Is it AJ Brown? Is it Devontae Smith? Dallas Goedert? How do we choose between these wide receivers? We'll start with the Eagles, since that's your team.
So I think it's always great. Jahan Dotson always gets these really low numbers. Looking at DraftKings. Oh,
he's been good in prime time.
He's 7.5 on DraftKings. And look, he's either going to have, if you look at his last couple games, last game he had a 40-yard reception. He's had a 17-yard reception, a 24-yard, a 51-yard. Like, I think he maximizes his snaps out there. So I think Jahan Dotson over 7.5 is not a terrible thing. But I think this is a Dallas Goedert game. Remember, Dallas Goedert last year, the highlight was him stiff-arming the Packers player 3 times on his way to a touchdown. The Packers are middle of the road against tight end so far this season. I think everybody's going to go to AJ. I think a lot of people are going to go to Devontae here. So I think Dallas Goedert has some value potentially to score a touchdown tonight, but I think this is a really active game for him. And so I'm looking to the fringe guys. As I said, Jahan Dotson over 7.5, and I think Dallas Goedert to score a touchdown tonight. He just feels like a guy who's going to be really active tonight. And there's certain games that he does a lot with his snap count. And so I think he could have a good game tonight as well.
As Louis Creech brought up, the props on Jalen Hurts are too high. However, this is that tush-push revenge game, because the Green Bay Packers were one of the most adamantly outspoken teams in banning the tush-push. How often could we expect the Eagles to utilize it?
But I think it's funny. Some books have a prop on that. I don't see it in some places, but like there are some books that have like how many times
Over under tush pushes.
Yes, over under on tush pushes. Now I don't know how many, which book has it, but look, Nick Sirianni's a petty guy. And one of the reasons why I love Nick Sirianni, I'm glad he's my head coach because he is petty. Remember that Indianapolis Colts game, he did that for revenge for Frank Reich. It was like 2 or 3 years ago after they fired Frank Reich. He's like, I won this game for Frank Reich. And then there was the game in Kansas City when he was yelling at the Kansas City fans. So like he's the type of guy who will lean into it. But I think tonight they're going to do the tush push, but use some of the wrinkles. Like I think Saquon's going to get a carry. I think there could be a pass play that comes out of it. So I think they're going to set up for several tush pushes and use some wrinkles tonight. That's why Jalen Hurts' rushing attempts is a little higher. I think, don't forget, if they win, knees could come into play here. So I don't think that Jalen Hurts' rushing attempts is too high tonight. I think also with the way the Packers pass rush is and with the way that they have a backup center in there, I think we could see Hurts run more tonight than we have in the past.
How about Saquon Barkley to score a touchdown?
I mean, I can't ever recommend that. What is Green Bay's second best rush defense in the league? Saquon had a really good game against the Giants. I need to see him do it again before I'm ready to do that. And it's funny how his rushing yards have gone down every week, it feels like. And like it's going under. And so I think it went back up a little bit. But like, as I said, the Green Bay rushing defense is really good this year. So I would not recommend anything Saquon tonight. I think he has a decent game. And I think if they're leading, they use him towards the end to run the game out. But I don't think he has a great game tonight.
Craig asked about the Eagles O-line.
I mean, Brett Toth was really good at center 2 weeks ago, but that was the Giants. Of course, the Giants have a really good defensive line. So, like, if that's the one thing that you struggle with for the Giants is their defensive line, we dominate Micah Parsons. Like, Micah Parsons has done nothing as a Cowboy against the Eagles. And I think it's so funny that Jerry threw the poison pill into that deal where the Packers can't deal Micah Parsons to an NFC East team or else they have to give up a first-round draft pick. But, like, Micah does nothing and has done nothing in the past against the Eagles. So, like, I'm not as worried about him as the other guys, but like 2 weeks to kind of fix some things. By the way, in the future, they have this guy, Willie Lampkin, who is an undersized center that they took from the Rams in the offseason. I think he's going to be really good as like the next center or the next good offensive lineman for them. He's not ready yet, but I'm not as worried about the offensive line tonight because I think Micah won't do what he usually does. I know he's coming off a game where he had 0 pressures against Carolina, but he just never does anything against the Eagles.
Let's talk special teams. I know that you like looking at the kicker props, kicker whisperer. What would you advise?
So normally I would say let's go with the McManus one. The Eagles are towards the bottom of the league in terms of allowing field goals. Their defense when it comes to field goal defense is incredible. I'm pulling up the numbers now. They are 32nd. They allow 2.8 field goal attempts per game for opponents. That is 2.5 on the road. But if you look at the weather for tonight, wind could be a factor, about 15, 20 mile per hour wind gusts potentially. It's going to be very cold. Plus, there was that whole thing with Matt LaFleur said during the week that maybe there was going to be a kicker competition between Brandon McManus and other guys. And then later on in the week, he was like, yeah, I was just joking about that. So I don't know what his confidence level is for McManus. So if the weather was better, I'd say go 100% McManus, but I'm very concerned about the wind gusts. And in that stadium, I definitely think that's going to be an issue. You saw on Thursday, you asked me about Thursday night with Denver and the Raiders, and I hadn't looked at the weather forecast, and because usually wind is not an issue in Denver, but the wind was definitely a factor, and they did not attempt as many field goals as they normally would. So I think the wind and the cold are scary tonight. So I would recommend McManus maybe over his 1.5, but the weather is not pristine tonight.
If we're talking about weather, then how much does that impact other props like passing props or under passing props or over rushing yards for any of these teams?
Well, I think, like we've seen those insane Cleveland games where the wind gusts are like 35, 50 miles per hour, and then you would just take the under in the longest pass completion. The Eagles don't give up a lot of long pass completions. This team has done a very good job, and they play almost the shell coverage where they don't allow you to beat them deep. And so, I do think it's interesting. Jordan Love's longest completions, 38.5 tonight. My question is, who is going to do that if a lot of their guys are injured? I know Golden is the track guy, but he's not 100%. 100%. Watson's a deep guy, but like he's not 100%. He's not playing a ton of snaps tonight. So I would almost look at potentially Love under 38.5 yards for his longest reception. And the good thing is you have 2 games to look at last year. Like last year, these 2 teams played twice. One was in Philadelphia. Granted, the other one was in Brazil with the terrible field conditions. But like you have some past data points. If you look last year, Jordan Love's longest completion against the Eagles in the playoffs was 29, and his longest in Brazil was 70. But as I said, a lot of people were slipping during that game. So like I think there's a chance he goes under that 38.5 longest reception.
Another prop that I was looking at today, which you can let me know what you think. I was looking at your quarterback, Jalen Hurts, under his longest rush. It was 12.5. I'm not going to count out the rush attempts. I'm not going to count out the rushing yards. But the Packers have been really good against mobile quarterbacks this season.
So it's something that I think that they're purposely not trying to do a lot of with Jalen because I think they're trying to keep him healthy this year. So I think that if you're coming out of the bye, the thing that's always interesting coming out of bye weeks is wrinkles. Like teams are going to put things in that no one's seen before. So that way they can, surprise some people. And if you look the first 4 weeks of the season, he's had some long runs. Once again, if you look at last year, Jalen had a long of 15 against the Packers at home, and he had a long of 8 in Brazil. So I kind of, as I said, I throw out the Brazil statistics because of the field conditions. And it's the first week of the season.
I don't like to count international games.
Right. And because it's the first week of the season. So like neither of those teams were what they're supposed to be. If you also remember in 2022, Jalen Hurts ran 17 times against Green Bay for 157 yards. Now, granted, Green Bay's defense is much better now than it was a couple years ago. But like, I think tonight, sneaky night for Jalen Hurts on the ground as well.
Ooh, okay. So you do like Jalen Hurts tonight. And again, it is the push revenge spot. I know that you don't like talking about your team, and I don't like talking about my team either. But if you had to have a feel, listen, the line's been moving in the Eagles' favor. It was 2.5. It's now 1.5. Here in Aruba, the line actually flipped to the Eagles minus 1.5.
Well, it's good to know there's a lot of Eagles fans in Aruba. I mean, listen, we're everywhere. We are everywhere as fans. Listen, I've already put my emotional hedge bet in. I already have Green Bay money line tonight. As I said, I would feel better about the Eagles if Green Bay hadn't lost their last game. This is a team that plays down to their competition, but they also play up to the really good teams. Go back to that Detroit game, go back to earlier in the season. It all comes down to Jordan Love. Like Jordan Love has 1 or 2 throws a game that you're like, what are you doing? And if they're intercepted, they're going to lose the game. If they fall harmlessly to the ground, then he gets away with it. I think tonight, because we haven't really talked as much about the Packers side of things, I think this is a Josh Jacobs game. I think Josh Jacobs, they run him early and often.
Why?
Once again, last year, he had some success. He had 81 yards in Philly and he had 84 yards in Brazil. I just feel like this is the type of game that you want to soften up the Eagles. Their rush defense hasn't been as good. Now, without Nolan Smith is a very good rush defensive end. Brandon Graham, throughout his career, was a very good rush defensive end. So, and Jalen Phillips, I think, is a pretty good rush defensive end too. But the problem is, I just feel like Josh Jacobs is the type of guy that you run into the line and you keep doing it. And by the third or fourth quarter, those rushes become a whole lot longer. So for me, I feel like Josh Jacobs is the guy to attack here for Green Bay. I think he gets over the number. I don't know what his number is with regards to rushing yards. I'm looking it up now. It's 65.5 on BetMGM. It's 66.5 on FanDuel and 67.5 on DraftKings. I think he goes over that. I think he approaches 80 yards, probably gets a touchdown tonight. So Josh Jacobs would be the guy that I play for Packers props.
Anything else in Monday Night Football? Because I'm going to ask you about college basketball.
So I think that I think that's pretty much it. Josh Jacobs, Dallas Goedert. I think Jahan Dotson goes over. I think the under on Love's longest reception. I think those are probably the places that I would go tonight. Now, I will say this, as we talked about beforehand, like I'm slightly jaded when it comes to my team. My handicapping is not quite as sharp. Because I do fade my team a lot here, but I think those are the guys to kind of look at tonight. If you wanted to do like a Josh Jacobs, Dallas Goedert, anytime touchdown parlay, I don't do those things really, but I think those are the 2 guys that I would focus in on. And of course, Jalen Hurts, if they do a push touchdown too. But like now you're really getting into it with a three guy parlay. I would play them individually and hope to hit 2 of them. But like, if you really want to get dangerous, I would go with those 3.
We could go on props.cash and Prize Picks and do it. I'm looking at props.cash right now though, and I looked at Jahan Dotson, and I just want to check this. His longest reception on props.cash, it says it's 3.5. And let me just look on Pickett right now just to see what the longest reception prop is. Jahan Dotson receiving yards, longest reception, 4.5 on Fanatics. So in prime time, look at this. I'm going to show you this on props.cash. Share screen. This is why I love this site. Because I used to go through and look up all the primetime games myself, and it tells me about primetime without me having to manually do it. So if you want to go over 4.5 yards for longest reception, Jahan Dotson has gone over this in both primetime games this year and 8 of his last 10 primetime games, averaging a longest reception of 20 yards. And then if you look at him on the road, 2 of the last 3 on the road went over. So I really like that play. Even if you don't want to go over on the receiving yards, you could go over on the longest reception for Jahan Dotson.
Plus, he's playing a lot. I mean, the trade of John Mechie is going to open things up. I don't even know. I guess Darius Cooper is our 4th wide receiver. But like Jahan Dotson, week 8 played 74% of the snaps. That was without A.J. Brown. Now, with A.J. Brown, he's still playing about 60% of the snaps. So you're going to get opportunities. This is kind of like, I like these little things here. Like, I've been playing Michael Wilson's overs with Arizona because they've been pretty low, but he's getting the snap count to kind of make it worth it. And so last week, I had 2.5 on Sunday. He went over on his receptions. Jared and I had over 2.5 last week on Monday Night Football in Dallas. He had 3 receptions. So like, I think if you find the guys that have some value and the snap count that make it worth it, Jahan Dotson kind of fits in that mix.
Okay, I have to add that to a Prize Picks lineup. Damn it. I have to go add something else in. Okay. I'm going to have to text somebody. Anyway, I'm going to have to tell some people in the newsletter now that we got to add that to the list. Okay, college basketball real quick before Jared Block comes on in 5 minutes. Daniel wants to know college basketball. We know that it's your bread and butter, college sports. We've got college football, but college basketball's begun. What should the people know about the first week of college hoops?
Well, so I it's funny because I just posted on Twitter. I played a couple stuff on the opening day, and I haven't really played anything lately, mostly because on Thursdays and Fridays I'm focused on college football, and partially part of Wednesdays I've been focused on college football. But it's just, I think this early part is finding. I think it's studying which coaches take advantage of the bad matchups. You're going to see a lot of, Texas versus Texas State, or like a lot of the great teams playing bad teams. You have to do the research on which coaches care more about these games and which coaches don't. There are certain coaches who will care more about getting the rotations in and are okay with winning the game by like 16 or 17. And then there's other guys who are like the Lane Kiffins and Kurt Signettis of college football who are like, I want to win this game. I want to win it by 50, 60, 70. So I'm going to keep my pedal to the metal. So like, I think that's very important. And then also, you're getting a lot of neutral court games early on. There's a lot of these random tournaments in random places where there's not a lot of fans. So in that situation, I usually like to either take the better team or the more veteran team because there's no atmosphere. And I've talked to a lot of players when they play in these neutral court settings and there's no energy. Sometimes you have to generate your own, and the younger teams struggle to do so because they're not used to it. Whereas the veteran teams are like, all right, I'm used to 10 people being here. I can get myself going a little bit. So, as we get towards Thanksgiving and we do feast week and stuff like that, I think you have to make sure to pay attention to where these games are, who's the more veteran team, who's the better team, and like what the spread is, because you could find some value there.
Anything that you like tonight?
No. I've been too nervous about the Eagles game. I'm just too focused in.
Okay, have there been any trends, any teams to watch, anything that you would advise people, or any teams you would advise people to go towards or stay away from?
Well, the end of last year, we found a lot of success taking team total overs when Bellarmine's on the road. Bellarmine has played 2 Power 4 opponents so far this season and have given up a ton of points in each game. So that trend's continuing. It's more so on the road than when they're home, but they have a really, really, really bad defense. So that's a trend we've been looking at early on. We're still trying to figure out if this Toledo team, who we've made a lot of money taking their team total overs, we haven't figured out yet. They've had one good game and one bad game. So we're still trying to figure that out a little bit. But, early on, on. It's just kind of, I don't think people, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to just watch games and take mental notes. Like we're still trying to get the data points going a little bit here. And this is the weird part. I mean, you understand with like the NFL and you're trying to do NBA as well. So like, college football is dominating my time more right now than college basketball is, but I'm certainly taking notes. So there will be more plays coming up once college football calms down a little bit. But like college football is my number one sport other than baseball. By the way, did you see our guy Kyle Hendricks is retiring? Our Mr. 2.5 K-prop guy is retiring.
I did not see that he's retiring.
Yeah, it's really sad because he was Mr. 2.5 along with Jose Urena. By the way, did you see the other thing that they are now limiting first pitch props to $2 million?
Here's the thing about this. Tell me a book that you were able to get more than that down on anyway.
I don't think so. I don't think there was.
So they're gonna make these headlines to try to make it look like it's making an impact, but it already was like essentially that way. I don't know where these people from Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz got down like $7,000. I don't know how that happened. It definitely can't at a legal book.
Well, and it's stupid because if you're betting that much on such a small market, you're going to get noticed. Like if you were betting $7,000 on, Shohei's hits, runs, and errors or whatever, like hits, runs, and RBIs, like that's different because that's a more public market. But if like you and I bet $10,000 on Emmanuel Clase to throw a ball his first pitch, like people would notice that sort of thing.
Also, again, I just don't know where I have friends that can't get down 250 on a normal prop. Nonetheless, a micro market. Just insane exactly. That, like, again, they're making a storyline out of something that already basically existed. Yeah.
I mean, there should be limits on every player prop. The problem is if you make the limit $50, then somebody's just going to put like $50 bets. Like you almost have to limit the account as opposed to the bet, because then, if you're saying to me, I can only bet $50 on something, then I'm going to go bet $50, log out, do it again, log out, do it again, log out, do it again. Like if that's still legal, and if that's still okay, then you're not stopping me from putting down the same amount as if I would put down $5,000 at once.
Yeah, I'd have to see what books these places are talking about because they didn't name anybody yet. They just said prominent sports books, which again, on a normal prop is still $250. But anyway, Jared Block is logged in, mid-major Matt. Good luck to those Eagles tonight. I will be rooting for you because my girl Kelly's night is going to live and die in Aruba on if the Eagles cover the teaser. So we need to root for the Eagles anyway. And luckily, we're just making sure you don't lose by, 8?
We have 8.5. So
8.5.
I think I found a +1 on Green Bay on night.
Yeah, well, Kelly's gonna. Yeah, are you gonna? Well, okay.
We're gonna try to middle it.
Hedging's for losers, Kel.
Hedging for losers.
Middling for men.
Middling for men.
Hedging is for losers.
Mid-major Matt, thank you so much. We'll see you on Friday.
Sounds good.
Oh, just kidding. I'm not working Friday. I should tell you that. Not
Friday.
Working Friday. Okay, you're off Friday.
Okay.
I'll see you next week when I'm home.
All right.
See you, Matt.
See ya.
Okay, coming on the show now, as he does every Monday, and I'm grateful for him for coming on last week when I was not here. I'm not hungover. What are you talking about? Me and Kelly were in bed at 10 o'clock last night. 10:30. 11. We've been playing a lot of blackjack, but I have stopped drinking after dinner every night. Just kidding. I did have a rum and Coke last night, but I didn't finish it. I had 2 sips, and then we lost. So we left the table. I had a horrible blackjack dealer last night. Horrible. But anyway, that's not what the story is. Not hungover, just relaxed. I am just relaxed at the beach. And to be honest, I don't really want to be working. I'm in Aruba. I don't want to work. So I'm just working for this week because I love you guys and I want to give you good info. But I would really like to be drinking a margarita with Kelly right now on the beach. But anyway, same vibes, right? Because Jared Block from Trinity Analytics is going to join the show like he does every Monday, and we are going to get some winners in the NFL and in the NBA. Jared Block, happy Monday.
Happy Monday. I'm
my God, you and Matt
thankful.
are head-to-head tonight.
I'm thankful you didn't put us in the same video screen so you could see that.
I'm so glad that you guys didn't have to work together today, and it was last week.
Yeah,
that
for what
been
it's worth.
Funny.
By the way, we had a 53.5 game total to talk about in Cowboys Cardinals, and it totally blew up in our faces. So I'm glad you didn't watch that show because Dallas couldn't put it together. But tonight's game is going to be insane.
Oh, really? Why? What insane in what way?
I just think it's really hard to cap this game. Like, I don't know if you were talking about how much you were talking about it with Matt, because all I heard was baseball stuff. But I think this game just has a lot of pathways to cloudiness. Green Bay is missing arguably their top guy in Tucker Kraft in the passing game. And I do think that Green Bay missing a top corner opens the door for a wide receiver for, Philly. And we haven't really seen either defense get swallowed up by any position necessarily. So excited to break it down for you.
I'm excited for you to do that as well because we talked a lot of Eagles props since Matt is an Eagles fan. Let's slide over to a little bit of Green Bay for now. How are they going to adjust with Tucker Kraft out for the first? I know that he missed a lot of the Panthers game, but this is really their first time playing an entire game without him.
Right. So I think what they'll do, and again, I guess we'll get to this in the Jacobs segment here, but I don't think that moving Luke Musgrave to tight end 1 on the depth chart necessarily means 100% replication of the same thing. For like NBA purposes, you can say guy slides in the starting lineup. You can argue that he's got great value. I don't know if this is the same situation. I don't even know if Musgrave's, like, for what it's worth, he was taken ahead of Kraft in the same draft by the Packers. So got the better pedigree in the draft, but I don't necessarily think it's a talent on talent 100% swap or anywhere close to that. So with that said, Jordan Love's going to have to get creative. For what it's worth, like, I don't even know who's the third receiving option for the Packers tonight because Matthew Golden's questionable, Savion Williams is questionable, Dontavian Wicks is questionable. We'll find out in about an hour if those guys are good to go. But with that said, I do think that Love's going to have to be aggressive tonight, and that means that he's probably going to have to be active in the rushing game. And I do think that we've seen enough sample size of guys that not only we got Mahomes and we got Dart a couple times running on this Eagles team who have been a bottom half team against mobile QBs in the rushing department. I know Love's not that guy. And I guess Nick's really isn't that guy either, but he had some success against the Eagles in the rushing department. The main thing that moves me over the edge to go Jordan Love rushing yards is because I do think that he is not only going to have to be aggressive, but Carson Wentz had like almost 30 rushing yards in this spot a couple of weeks ago. I just feel like you got to put the ball in your hands here, and you don't have the safety blanket that Kraft brings you. So I'm taking the over of 10.5 rushing yards for Love here.
Ooh, okay. Hold on. Let me get this all up with your graphic. So Jordan Love over his rushing yards tonight, but then you're going Josh Jacobs out of the backfield. How come? And again, I have to go check back at your messages when you updated overs and unders because I was like, wait, which one? Okay, so over 18.5 receiving yards for Josh Jacobs. How come he is going to catch balls out of the backfield?
Yeah, I think I'm probably going to be one of the only people that says this today across the industry. I'm trying to get a read, and I'm throwing myself out there. So this doesn't have super, super strong backing. I'll admit that. But I'm trying to be early to Josh Jacobs being one of the better pass catching running backs for rest of season stuff. So the main theory behind this, it's not a DVP thing. The Eagles don't necessarily allow that many receiving yards to running backs. What I want to try to get ahead of is who is going to be the guy that gets the screen game now that Tucker Kraft is not on the field. Again, I don't think after watching this team religiously like I do, maybe there's some fan bias here, not super sure, but there's got to be somebody who steps up and is the leader from the screen game for this team. You got Golden hurt. I don't know if he's going to play and be that guy and make a difference here. Also, Golden doesn't have more than 10 receiving yards in back-to-back games, which is super scary. So obviously something's going on injury-wise. Romeo Doubs isn't going to catch screens. Christian Watson's a deep threat. And so while they might give Luke Musgrave some dump-offs here, I think it's going to be at Jacobs' spot where he's going to have to get 5-6 targets out of the backfield moving forward. He's also 1 week still removed again from this calf injury. He's been reporting in practice like he's a full participant every day. His calf isn't bothering him anymore. And so I think they're going to have to be hyper aggressive to throw him the ball and make him get in space. So again, not really a DVP play. I can't say that it's a good spot. I'm just trying to get ahead of the market on Josh Jacobs receiving moving forward.
Christian Watson, your longest reception prop. Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Matthew Golden. I mean, there's so many options on that Green Bay Packers side. So how come you decided with going Christian Watson at home in Lambeau in prime time?
He's earned 4 targets in each game that he's played this year, which has been 2 of them. And he's been surpassing the 55-yard receiving market both times. He finished with 58 and 85. It's mainly because they've been using him as a deep threat. He has had a 30-plus yard pass in each contest. And just dating back to regular season stuff when he's been active, it's kind of the market that you want to bet him on. I'm not going to ever bet Watson in the receptions category. So I think this is a doable one, and I think it's a little bit light on the books. We have Prize Picks specifically putting him at 22.5 longest reception. I think he does have, if he's going to catch 4 passes, probably a good 2 of them should be over 20 plus yards. So I'll take my chances in that market.
Yeah, he's a fun deep threat, and so is Romeo Doubs, but you're going over his targets. So it's interesting because you chose to go that Watson's going to have the deep ball, but then Doubs is going to be the one targeted the most tonight by Jordan Love. How come it's going to be Doubs who's going to be the main target?
Yeah, I wouldn't even consider Christian Watson 100% healthy either. Maybe you can at this point. He doesn't have a tag. But Romeo Doubs is like the only guy on the team that doesn't have an injury tag in the receiving room. And so with that said, it's been a consistent thing over the past month. He's had 6+ targets in 5 straight games. I think the line that I sent you was 7 targets on Prize Picks. I just feel like at some point, like if this game is going to go back and forth, which I think it should, and Kraft off the field, Musgrave not matching Kraft's target share, I think that Romeo Doubs is just going to be leaned on for chain-to-chain type of passing. So that's what I'll go with. And you don't even have to be efficient to hit that number. I think even if Doubs finishes with like 4 for 45 or 4 for 50, he can still have 8+ targets.
And then we've got the McKinney over tackles and assists, which I absolutely love this market. It is my favorite primetime market. If I wasn't here in Aruba and had the time, which I do, I'm just being lazy. But when I get back, it is my favorite market to literally tackle in prime time because there are certain positions, there's actually certain defenders that do really well in prime time. Then there's certain positions that tend to tackle more than others against certain offenses. How come it's McKinney tonight?
The main reason that I'm looking at McKinney here is because one of the Packers corners, Nate Hobbs, is not going to play in this game. He got banged up against Carolina last week. And I do think this is a spot where one of my favorite plays that we'll get to right after this is Dallas Goedert. If he is like Green Bay essentially is funneling targets over the middle of the field to tight ends. We've seen it with Trey McBride. We've seen it in previous games against them this season. And I just think that without a top corner, that might have to put the Packers in more double coverage situations. And then on top of that, McKinney's probably going to be the guy that's going to be responsible for keeping an eye on Dallas Goedert. And if I think that Dallas Goedert's going to go over, it's probably a pretty good chance that McKinney's going to be the one responsible for tackling him.
Like you said, Dallas Goedert over his receiving yards tonight. What number did you get that at and why?
9 fantasy PPR site Prize Picks is, so I want to go with the fantasy score. If you don't have fantasy, I think I'm leaning receiving yards. Like I said, the Green Bay Packers have just been a funnel to pass catching tight ends this year. The Jonnu Smith smashed them. I think Darnell Washington scored in the Steelers game. Trey McBride a couple weeks ago, like we mentioned. So you want tight ends against Green Bay. I feel strongly with Goedert here, and the touchdown equity this season is insane. He's leading the pass catching crew for Philly in touchdowns. He might have the most touchdowns on the team in general, not named Jalen Hurts. And I just feel like in that spot in this matchup where the middle of the field should be open, I'm going to go and make sure that the touchdown stuff is there. Again, if you don't have fantasy scores, I think you can play yards, and we'll probably do that in the parlay. But yeah, I do think that Goddard's your best matchup on paper, probably in this game.
For Devontae Smith, receptions is an interesting market because obviously you're going with the magnitude there as opposed to the yardage. And you would think that someone like Smith or Brown would be able to get some kind of deep ball. So how come you don't want to go with the yardage and just go over on the receptions?
It's mainly because Green Bay's defense has done very well in terms of limiting big plays. They have allowed the fewest 20-plus yard catches in the league this year. And while I do think that Philly could have success because they have been hyper aggressive in the passing game over the past month, I just want to lock in on a spot where I think like AJ has been just really inconsistent this year, and his monster games are coming in spots where he doesn't have many receptions. I feel like Devonta has been the preferred like move the chains type of receiver for this Eagles team, while AJ's been more of the big play guy, which is kind of weird to say, but it's been really up and down for them in that category. I think it's just like another add-on to this whole Green Bay missing Nate Hobbs situation. They'll put the better corner on AJ Brown, and Devonta probably gets a bench guy today. So that's kind of how I'm looking at that. So I do think that they'll adjust, and more than likely he'll clear that 4.5 number.
We've talked a lot of Monday Night Football on this show with Mid-Major Matt as an Eagles fan. Jared Block is a Packers fan. These two going head-to-head despite being two guys that have been so good with Monday Night Football props and kicker props. So we can't split here. Someone's got to win. But Jared, you've been very big into the NBA. We haven't talked enough NBA today. NBA's got a big slate. And for anyone that knows about anything with sports betting, the world's going to be looking at Monday Night Football. The world's not looking at the NBA tonight. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games in the association. What do you like tonight?
When I was wrapping up our show at Trinity Analytics today, one of our main talking points was like, we have 3 weeks of data now. It feels a little bit more comfortable. We're not kind of grasping at straws and hoping that things work.
Yeah, like 4 weeks is year. When I get back from Aruba every year, I'm like, this is when I start handicapping the NBA.
Yep. And on top of that, we got cup game action, which has been really fun. Tonight's not a cup game, but like you said, everybody's going to be paying attention to Monday Night Football stuff. And unlike the last game, like, look, I named we talked a lot of NFL plays, and I think that all of those have merit. But I think that you got like some of the most elite spots in the NBA on paper tonight. And it starts with Anthony Edwards. I think that, you just saw them play this Utah team. Unlike baseball, I think you would get this reference very well. We just saw the Wolves play the Jazz on Friday. The Wolves just absolutely smashed them. They won by like 30 plus points. And unlike baseball, like, I'm not worried about facing a team the second time around. I think that when like we talk about this when pitchers are facing the same team 2 times in a week, usually the offense can get to the pitcher the second time around and kind of fade the pitcher. When you do this for basketball, I think you just attack it even harder. And what you've seen now from Anthony Edwards is that this is one of the most elite spots against a bad 3-point shooting defense. Utah is the worst defense against 3-point shooting the last 2 seasons, and it's true again this year. And I don't know if I can say this about any other player facing a team, but for whatever reason, Anthony Edwards has just absolutely dominated the Jazz, and he's gotten over 31 points in 7 straight games against them dating back to 2023. Now, I don't always believe that's a thing year over year that we can depend on. That's a fun, cherry on top stat. But the thing is, like, the Jazz are allowing the most above the break threes. For those of you who don't know what that is.
And they were one of the worst perimeter defenses in the league last year, too.
Exactly. And that's a coaching thing, and that's a player personnel thing, and they don't have the guys to defend the 3. And so for those of you who don't know what above the break is, it's basically the line, the 3-point equivalent past the free throw line. So anything from there back is above the break, and Anthony Edwards is making the 5th most shots from that zone per game in the league.
Okay, so we're going Anthony Edwards over threes or over points?
We're going over points.
Okay. Over points for Anthony Edwards tonight. I'm also seeing the Lakers. They've been in action, and we know LeBron's out for at least another week or 2. How are we attacking the Lakers these days?
Yeah, they're 8.5-ish point favorites on the road. They've covered extremely well on the road as well this year to start. And, I just feel like there's this. I'm not worried. I never like to talk about blowouts. I'm usually cautiously optimistic in terms of talking like that. 8.5 is not a blowout number. So even if the Lakers cover by 9, 10, 11, they're still playing Luka Doncic a full rotation of minutes. He is in one of the best spots imaginable on paper today. In games that Luka has played 34 plus minutes, he has recorded a good like 30 plus points in the majority of those contests this year. And I think that this is on top of that a pace up spot for the Lakers. Charlotte's one of the worst defenses in the league, and they're also one of the fastest teams in the league. So it's going to give Luka more possessions to do what he does, and it's also one of the best 3-point shooting spots on paper, like right behind the Anthony Edwards spot. And Luka Doncic ranks 5th in the league in terms of 3-point makes per game. So I think that even in a world where the Lakers win by 12 to 15 points, like I wouldn't be like when one of my co-hosts, Josh Reimer at Trinity Analytics, we were trying to grade a Luka plus Reeves over under scoring tonight, and we both came up with the number 70. And I just feel like this is a spot where Luka is going to go absolutely bananas. I think that if you're playing, what is that called, King of the Court or whatever, DraftKings has that. I'm not sure what the FanDuel equivalent is.
Yeah.
For most points in a game, Luka's like got to be the favorite, and I think that a 50 is possible today.
When it comes to those cup games, how do you handicap those differently?
Well, I think you feel more confident about the starters getting full run in games like featuring 10 plus point spreads. Now, Friday was a bad example of this. I think every team that won on Friday won by more than 10 points, which is not a great look for the NBA in terms of the point differential thing. Like the point differential was supposed to help the NBA incentivize players to keep things close. It didn't really work out on that day, but I do think what we see is just like a massive amount of scoring in those games, just because even if you're underdogs, at least for the first couple of cup games, we've seen teams keep their starters in longer.
K325 wants to know if you like Castle assists tonight.
Yeah, let me pull that game up in my notes here. We did see De'Aaron Fox play on Saturday. He did not have a minutes limit. Even in that game, like the usage rate for Fox was really good. The stats were all really good. But we also just saw Stephon Castle and Devin Vassell do really well in a spot where I felt like we should like wait on this just to see how Fox meshes with the other guys. I just think that Stephon Castle's just got this real role now moving forward, where last year it was kind of overshadowed by the Fox trade. I think that this is completely fine. Like the rebounds assist market for Stephon Castle has looked really, really good. He has specifically recorded 12 plus rebounds assists in 5 straight. He had 17 in that market with Fox back on Saturday. So it doesn't feel like, at least right now, that Stephon Castle is being affected from a peripheral standpoint. The scoring might be up and down with Fox active, but at least right now I feel comfortable with the assist stuff.
How about Cade Cunningham tonight?
Oh yeah, another smash spot for Cade. I mean, like, look, we don't see this every day, and stars kind of just show out regardless. But we like if there's a star playing tonight, he's in a really, really good matchup. And Cade is another one of those guys. The Washington Wizards are one of the worst defenses in the NBA. This is also a massive, massive pace up spot. And whenever I say pace, I'm referring to how many possessions are in these games. And Washington is one of the highest paced teams in the league, where Detroit is around the middling. They rank 17th in pace. So whenever you get a drastic like 17-4 in this example, in terms of pace of play, pace up situation, it means more possessions, it means more shot attempts, it means more everything for what we like to do. So when it comes to Cade Cunningham, the dude just has an overall unbelievable spot, and we know that the Wizards are basically bleeding points to every position on the floor, but mainly point guards and centers. And on top of that, this was really fun. Do you have Props Cash open right now, or are you able to do that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, when you get to Cade, let me know when you get to Cade. I'll look at the
all right, I'll share the screen. It
was a really interesting trend that I found was very useful for tonight. So
okay, Cade, where do you want me to go?
Okay, filter by win by 10 plus, and then go to his assists. So you're seeing that in games where Detroit has won by 10, the 10 plus assist market has been pretty on point, which means that in these scenarios where we can expect them to be up They're 12-point favorites right now. I do think that Cade is still fully playable. I understand 10.5 is, a market, but I do think it's going to be like, if this is still plus money at this spot, like, I think it's a really, really good example of what could happen, even if they win by 10 plus points.
Cade Cunningham, big smash spot, according to Jared Block tonight. Jared, thank you so much for coming on, as always, on a Monday. Good luck to those bets tonight, and I will see you next week.
See you.
I guess I should say go Pack go, but I don't want Kelly's night to be ruined, so I'm not going to root for his Packers tonight. We've got Prop Queen edges of the day. And first, let's go to the most bet on props according to BetMGM. My computer is freezing, so that's not good. Let's get to, where is it? Okay, there it is. Let's get to propaganda. This is StreamYard's not liking me today. Hold on. StreamYard is not liking me today. The propaganda graphic, I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but it said it played. Anyway, these are the most bet on props according to BetMGM tonight. We're going with Devontae Smith over 53.5 receiving yards as the number one prop over at BetMGM for Monday Night Football. Christian Watson over 39.5 receiving yards, second most bet on prop. Josh Jacobs over 16.5 receiving yards. Romeo Doubs under 54.5 receiving yards. And Saquon Barkley over 2.5 receptions. Those are your most bet on props according to BetMGM. Most bet anytime touchdown scorers. Jalen Hurts is number one. Saquon, Josh Jacobs, Dallas Goedert, and A.J. Brown. When it comes to my props for tonight, I'm going under Luke Musgrave, the tight end for the Packers. I know that they're in their first full game without Tucker Kraft. However, Luke Musgrave, even though he had a good 34-yard performance against Carolina his last game, that team allows the sixth most yards per game to tight ends. What, if you watch the show at all, you know that we fade tight ends against the Eagles since the beginning of last year. Musgrave, getting this Eagles defense now, who have allowed the 62% of tight ends have hit the under in their receiving yard prop against Philly this year. So we're going Luke Musgrave under his receiving yards tonight. Oh, I made a graphic for this, actually. Jalen Hurts over his 26.5 pass attempts. I'm going to go back to this market despite Justin Herbert losing it for me last night, but it's fine. Hurts is averaging 30 pass attempts in his last 9 primetime road games, going over in 7 of those 9 primetime road games. When betting pass attempts versus completions, I like to go under completions and over pass attempts because I don't like to trust wide receivers. It's a 1.5 point spread, so you're going to expect a close game. The Packers have allowed the 6th most pass attempts per game. 37 pass attempts a game is what they're allowing, which is why 75% of quarterbacks to face Green Bay went over their pass attempt prop this year. Jalen Hurts under 12.5 yards for his longest rush. Hurts has gone under his longest rush prop in 3 of 4 games against top 10 teams in rushing yards allowed to quarterbacks. He's hit this under in 7 of his 9 road primetime games, averaging just under 11 yards per longest rush. Green Bay has allowed the least rushing yards per game to quarterbacks at 6.5 rushing yards a game. 75% of quarterbacks have gone under their longest rush prop this season. So we're going under on the Jalen Hurts longest rush. Saquon Barkley under 16.5 receiving yards tonight. He's gone under this in 3 of 4 road games this year, averaging 11 receiving yards a game on the road. He's been catching way more balls out of the backfield when he's at home. That number goes up to 29 receiving yards a game in Philly. Barkley's faced 3 defenses in the last 2 seasons that are top 10 against pass catching backs. Minnesota, 1 catch for -2 yards. Washington, 0 catches for 0 yards. Cleveland, 2 catches for 7 yards. The only time he went over was his second game against Washington, which was 2 catches for 52 yards. We know what happens in divisional games. You see him the first time and it doesn't happen, it's going to happen the second time. The Packers have allowed the 5th least receiving yards per game to running backs. 73% of running backs have gone under their receiving yard prop against Green Bay. So Saquon under receiving yards. And if you want to know my big prize picks lineup tonight, which I have to make a video for anyway, but I got talked into Jahan Dotson over longest reception. So now on prize picks, I've got 2 prize picks lineups tonight. This is the big one. Hold on, so this is the big one. 3 legs for $250, and it gets you just under $1,500. Jalen Hurts under the longest rush. Jahan Dotson over his longest reception, or more than, longest reception. And Luke Musgrave less than 30.5 receiving yards. So those are 3 of my favorite legs for tonight. But if you want to do a 2, I've got 2. Hold on one second. I just have to get the picture. Where's my snapshot? Oh, here. So I did a Prize Picks lineup for $250. Oh, I scrolled too high. $250 for just 2 of these different plays. So, oh no, not share screen. Image. So if you just want to do 2 instead of 3, then you could get Jalen Hurts over more than pass attempts, Luke Musgrave less than 30.5 receiving yards. $250 pays you $750. Sometimes I just like to do 2 because I think 3 gets a little murky. If you would like to take a little bit of a longer shot, it scares me. 3 always scares me, but I do like these plays a lot. Jalen Hurts less than 11.5 yards for his longest rush. Jahan Dotson, more than 4.5 yards on his longest catch. Luke Musgrave, less than 30.5 receiving yards. Maybe I'll do Dotson and Musgrave as well in a 2-legger. I don't know. I got to make up for these blackjack losses. 2 weeks here is no bueno. 2 weeks in Aruba is lots of loss. A lot of money lost. Actually, I did really well last week, but then Kelly came. No, that was bad influence. But it's fine. We're going to go get some dinner. I'm going to enjoy the hot weather in Aruba before I have to head to the snow. Thanks, guys, for tuning in here on the Prop Queen Pod. It's good to be back. No show tomorrow. Musgrave's at 27.5. That's fine. I don't see Musgrave having a big game tonight, to be honest. I would take under. The Eagles are really good against tight ends. I will be back on Wednesday in some capacity. I have to figure out the timing because Kelly and I are doing a wine tour. So I've got to figure out what time I'm going to do the show, or I might just pre-record something with Coach. Coach is going to be on in some capacity on Wednesday, so we'll definitely get to that so we can talk some NBA on Wednesday. Then we'll preview the NFL slate on Thursday here on the Prop Queen Pod, and next week we'll be back to normal. So Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, doing shows this week, and then next week back to normal Monday through Friday. So glad to have you guys here on the show. We will be back in 2 days from now. Good luck to your bets here on Monday Night Football and in the NBA. Thank you to Jared Block and Mid-Major Matt for joining the show. I will see you guys on Wednesday.